And join us on the phones to talk about one of the big stories developing in Austin. Chairman of the Texas House Ways and Means Committee, State Representative Dustin Burrows. Representative Burrows, Chairman Burrows, welcome back to the show. How are you today?
Chad, I am great. Just getting back home and always enjoy being back in Lubbock.
Yeah, well, glad to have you here on the program today. So yesterday, a big day down in Austin as property tax reform officially unveiled to the public. Walk us through this bill and the bill that you filed in the House yesterday, HB 2.
Yeah, yesterday I think was fairly unprecedented. I don't know anybody who can remember when you had the governor, Speaker of the House, Lieutenant Governor stand together and their chairman file identical bills on the same issue. It signals that we are unified in our pursuit of the two main things you've heard about, which is property tax reform and school finance reform. The first component, my bill, was laid out yesterday, House Bill 2. It does three main things. Number one, it ensures that we are slowing the rapid growth of property taxes. Secondly, it empowers citizens to say no. To have the right to an automatic election to stop excessive spending. And then number three, it ensures transparency. So we know who's raising our taxes and by how much. So the three cornerstones of the bill, very proud of the bill, and look forward to working with all members of the Texas House going forward to make sure it's a great bill and passes.
I'm sure that you've already gotten some feedback, both pro and con on this. It seems as though some of the I think there was a tweet yesterday maybe from the urban counties group that said that they were unhappy with this. I'm sure there are going to be some cities that are unhappy with this. What is your message? And maybe it's not just your message, but those of you who were at that press conference yesterday, what's the message being sent to voters and to elected officials in some of these counties and in some of these cities across Texas?
Look, for every one of those groups who comes and wants to try to divide the House and Senate and governor, I have infinite more taxpayers who are excited about real property tax reform. And we are united in trying to get this done this session. It's a good bill. And, essentially one of the things, the arguments is, well, it's going to cap spending or, make it more difficult. What it really does is it empowers citizens to have the right to say no to excessive spending, and I think we should have that right, and I think most people I talk to, people in Lubbock and all of the surrounding areas, believe they want that right.
Visiting with Chairman Dustin Burrows here on the Chad Hasty Show. Let's look at this bill. How would this bill impact the average taxpayer?
So first off, when you get your tax bill, it's really difficult to understand who's raising your taxes and by how much. We're actually going to have in the notice, you're going to see what the no new revenue rate is. So it's easy to tell which taxing entity is actually raising your taxes because you don't have to raise the tax rate to actually have your taxes go up because it's coupled with appraisals. So there's that element. We're also doing some reforms on the appraisals and appraisal review boards, trying to make sure that they understand that we, the citizens, are customers of theirs, and we need to be treated like that. But most importantly, what it says is we're going to lower the rollback rate, and we're going to have automatic elections. So if somebody wants to go over the rollback rate, the citizens are going to get a chance to weigh in.
And when you look at this bill, obviously there's going to be feedback from your colleagues, from members in the Senate. How confident are you that this 2.5% rate is going to stick, or are we going to see maybe a little bit of movement there?
Well, at this point in time, there's 149 other members of the Texas House, and they have a seat at the table so their district's voices can be heard. I invite them. I invite taxpayers and anybody who writes local budgets to weigh in, and we're going to go through the process. We're going to have committee hearings on this and make sure everybody's voice is heard, and we'll go through it, and we'll see where we get to.
Chairman Burrows, one of the I guess, instant reactions that some of our listeners had is I guess there's a $15 million threshold for counties that if you're not bringing in $15 million in tax revenue, then this is not going to apply to you. Comment on that and kind of clarify what areas are we looking at? Because I would think that may cover some of the areas out here in West Texas, correct?
It does, and there's a lot of areas out there that don't have budgets of $15 million, and so they would be at the higher rollback rate, although their elections would become automatic on uniform dates. One of the things that we heard from a lot of members is there's diminishing returns at that, and of course, a percentage of a $15 million budget or even a $2 million budget, the amount of money it affects it a whole lot differently than, say, a $100 million budget. And so this is the starting point for the bill. If you like it, if you're a county commissioner and you think that's a good place to keep, show up. If you're a taxpayer in one of those jurisdictions and you don't like it, show up. Your voices will be heard at the table. And, ask me again in 60 days and we'll see where the bill's at.
One of the, and this is going back to the last session, and I'm sure this is a argument you heard from, county officials, and I'm sure some city officials as well, and I believe the governor's commented on this, and that is, well, we would be okay maybe with a cap if the state wasn't throwing the unfunded mandates on counties and cities, and that's something that I keep hearing being brought up. What is your reaction to that argument?
Well, some of those mandates are not really by the state, they're by the federal government, and we can talk about those things going through. But again, I invite anybody who has that concern to come to the table and let's discuss what those really are. But sometimes I think that, I would say some of that rhetoric is really just a reason to try to say no to real meaningful property tax reform. And my message to anybody saying that is you saw the press conference yesterday. The governor, Speaker of the House, Lieutenant Governor, we are united, and we're not looking to be divided over issues. We're looking to deliver to Texas taxpayers this bill.
And visiting with Chairman Burrows here on the show, and I just got this text, and it's a really good one. And their question is to you: how's the working person supposed to show up in Austin to talk about this?
Well, they have representatives. Hopefully I'm one of the representatives. They can call and talk to me, and that's how their voices are going to be heard. So I would absolutely welcome anybody listening to give me a call. Let me know what they think about it, and that way I can represent their voices when we're actually negotiating on this bill. Absolutely.
We have to take one break. When we come back, you good to visit with us for one more segment?
Absolutely, Chad. Thank you.
Excellent. When we come back with Chairman Burrows, we've got a lot to discuss, including school finance, how this may tie into that, and other funding issues as well. Chad Hasty Show, KFYO. Back on the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, 95.1 FM, 790 AM, KFYO. We're back with Chairman Dustin Burrows here on the program. And when you first started discussing House Bill 2, one of the things that you had mentioned is this is one of the two big priorities for this session, and leading up until this session, all we've really talked about and all we've really heard from the governor, lieutenant governor, and Speaker Bonin is property tax reform and school finance. How does this tie into that other big issue, school finance?
Well, I am very excited because I feel the legislature, for the first time I've been there, is incredibly focused on two of the most challenging and complicated issues that we do face. Speaker Bonin has actually put styrofoam cups all around the House that says school finance reform, the time is now, just to remind and lead us to make sure we stay focused on solving these two issues. And, of course, the most part of our property taxes goes to pay for that. So this is the first part of the bill. There's some parts in there that deal with it, but I know there's going to be another big bill dealing with school finance reform that will come out of Education Committee, and that's going to be part of it. And these two need to pass, and they both need to get done this session, and we are committed to doing that.
Not that you're in charge of anybody's schedule down there in Austin, but do you think we'll see another? Because this is a running theme that we're seeing, I think, which is the governor, lieutenant governor, and the House Speaker coming out unified and on the big issues, bringing a unified voice. Do you think on a school finance reform package we may see the so-called Big Three come out and deliver another press conference and talk about another piece of legislation?
Above my pay grade. I'm focused on ways and means and property taxes, and I know the three of them have breakfast once a week in the mornings. They discuss these issues, something that wasn't happening last session, and very excited to see their cooperation, and I know that they're going to come out and do some big things together.
Visiting with Chairman Dustin Burrows here on this issue of property tax reform. When you were going around and you were speaking with voters and you were campaigning, and you take that to where we are right now, is this the number one issue that you and other lawmakers are hearing about in Austin?
Schools and education finance reform, absolutely. 1 and 2, just depends who you're visiting with. But I talk to people all the time that bought their homes several years ago. Some are on very fixed incomes, and their property taxes continue to go up and up and up. And anybody who discounts the stress that we feel when those property tax bills come due, by the way, they were due yesterday without a late penalty, people are hurting, they're struggling, and they're having less money left over to pay for education, to pay for savings, to pay their mortgage, to do anything. And so if we can make a difference over time, because this is essentially going to slow the growth, this is good and much needed, and I think people are fed up. Taxpayers are fed up on seeing property taxes continue to rise, and this bill is aimed directly at the heart of trying to slow the growth of them.
I want to ask you about an article that came out today over at the Texas Tribune, and it was an opinion piece here, and it was talking about funding, and if we're going to have the property tax cap, if we're talking about adding money to education, I believe there was a proposal to pay at least 40% of the cost of public education in Texas. From Controller Glenn Hager. If we're going to do that, where's the money going to come from?
Well, that's part of the commitment in this bill, is basically saying that we're going to lower the reliance on property taxes for school funding, and we're going to make it up with increases in the state budget where we get elsewhere. And so this is part of the overall strategy. We heard, about the state share versus the local share, and we're trying to get those numbers back up. And this two-part bill package is aimed directly at doing that. And, of course, the third leg of the stool is appropriations. And, we have set aside significant resources in the Texas House budget to do that just this year.
So the money's going to come from within the current budget then?
We have set significant resources aside to do exactly what it is and put us back on track to limit the reliance on property taxes alone to fund, continuing operations.
Very good. Visiting with Chairman Dustin Burrows, another big topic that people want to at least get updates, hear about, especially up here, the Texas Tech Vet School. It looks like to me in the proposed House budget, the Texas Tech Vet School is in a very good position moving forward in the House. In the Senate, a little bit more of a question mark. I know you can only control what the House is kind of looking like. But what do you think? How does this debate over funding for a Texas Tech vet school, how is this going to develop down in Austin?
Well, from the House side, it was a very big victory, and compliments to Speaker Bonin. He actually came to Lubbock before he took the gavel. He met with Texas Tech and listened, and kind of hinted at support that the Texas would have for this project. And, of course, when we saw the budget come out, fully funding the request without any riders on it, we were very excited. And, of course, the process has to move forward, and there will be conversations, and everybody's voices will be at the table. But we're starting from a good position in the House and the Texas legislature overall, and we're going to continue to watch how it plays out and develops.
Are we going to see another piece of legislation? Obviously, what HB 2 is designed to do is to slow tax growth. It's to slow what we're seeing in rising property taxes across the entire state of Texas. Will we see another bill that will maybe cut property tax and where people will see a reduction in taxes?
Well, we are focused right now on the big bill that we could not pass out last session, and this is the reform bill. It is the priority, of the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House, which is why it has House Bill number 2 on it. We are going to continue to move forward with that. There are several other bills and ways and means that we are actively considering trying to put forward. And as we continue to actually get the committee up and running, which will be in the next 2 weeks, we're going to consider all proposals, and I'll get back to you in 30 to 45 days on that.
Next week, we have the State of the State address from Governor Abbott. What would you like to hear from the governor? What do you think he's going to be outlining in his address?
Well, I would not like to tell the governor what to do, but I would be excited to see him declare some emergency items related to school funding, school safety, property tax reform, or at least comment and express, his solid support for those. And I know he's been a solid supporter of all of those initiatives. And so, we're looking forward to seeing, what he thinks the priorities ought to be. And, hopefully the House and the Senate and all of us, can agree that those are them and go forward and have one of the most productive sessions in the history of the Texas legislature.
What is the talk down in Austin as far as the kumbaya that we're seeing among the big three? And this, obviously, it's a change from the previous session and maybe the session even before that. It just, to me, right now, today, it seems like there's a different attitude, a different focus, and that's going to make some other lawmakers feel a little bit better about this session.
Well, sure. It's good for Texans. We were all sent down by our districts to get things done, to make meaningful reforms and to help improve the lives of the people we represent and Texans as a whole. And when the big three leaders are working together, we have a much better chance to get that done. And by the way, the kumbaya, from my perspective, it's not just an easy thing. You have to work with your other people, your other colleagues, the big three, to continue to have open dialogue, to have discussions, to compromise where you need to compromise without actually selling out on your principles. And I, commend all of them for striving hard for us to work together so we can be on this, trajectory to have a great session, a productive session, and make sure our district's voices are heard.
Very good. Chairman Dustin Burrows, appreciate your time today. Anything else that you want to say to the folks?
Chad, I always appreciate getting the opportunity to come on your show. We're going to be filing a series of bills in the coming weeks, and I look forward to the opportunity to come back and visit with you about what those do and why they're good for West Texas.
Absolutely, anytime. Chairman Dustin Burrows, as always, we appreciate your time. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Chad.
That's Dustin Burrows.